Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our weekly strategy stream. This time, we're doing this on the Wednesday because I wanted to wait until all of the Game Week 25 fixtures were over before doing this stream. And yes, so we're going to do that today. Sorry I'm a few minutes late today, guys. I wanted to catch the end of the Arsenal game, which I now regret because there was a last minute goal to Porto, but we'll leave that one there. That is UCL. We need to talk about PL today, Premier League and FPL. It's more specifically. So, guys, hope you guys are doing okay, all right. Hopefully you had good scores in Game Week 25. I didn't, but that's a conversation for another time. But today, I'm going to talk about a few things because I don't know if you guys have seen the news. Get it? Because we're in a newspaper style football shirt today. But yeah, chip strategy has maybe changed a little bit over the past few days in ways, in weird and wonderful ways that I want to kind of discuss with you guys today. We're going to talk about free hitting this week. We're going to talk about wildcarding this week. And I want to actually, by the end of the video, maybe convince you that this is not the week to free hit or wildcard as we go through what I believe to be the 2, possibly 3 viable chip strategies, in my opinion, that I think could work this season, assuming you have all of your chips left, other than the triple captain, because I know, guys, disappointing with the Erling Haaland 10-pointer on a triple captain. Yeah, it's not ideal. It really isn't. But remember, guys, the triple captain is never a real part of the chip strategy. It's just like a bonus chip in many ways. It's the least powerful chip. It is the weakest chip. And using your triple captain and maybe not getting the best score with a triple captain is not going to define your season. So do remember that. For those of you guys who maybe feel a little bit disappointed with your triple captain result this game week. But regardless, guys, we've got plenty to talk about today. So, we're going to start off with going through wildcards, free hits, and chip strategy, and then we'll do some sort of Q&A stuff at the end. Hope that's cool with you. Let's get cracking. All right. So, first of all, we are on the Fantasy Football Hub website, of course. If you guys fancy checking this tool out for yourself, you can do so by checking out the link in the description at the top. Of course, if you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, you get a discount using the link down below, and it also helps support the channel massively. So thank you all guys who have been using my link to sign up for Fantasy Football Hub. It really does keep this channel going. So this is the My Team tool, and I've built today a wildcard team. Because a few of you guys have been asking, what should we be doing for a wildcard? And I think here is the big thing. If you're wildcarding now, it basically means you're going to struggle later on in the season a little bit. Can we build a wildcard now that sets us up for covering the major game weeks? And the major game weeks remaining in this season are going to be Game Week 29. The crucial game weeks that we need to take key notes of are Game Week 29. As we know, this is going to be the big blank game week where we are not expecting very many fixtures at all to take place in Game Week 29. Only a few fixtures actually confirmed for Game Week 29, full stop. Game Week 34, which will be a small double game week and a chance of a small blank as well. A couple of teams may blank in Game Week 34, but there's also going to be several teams that double. Mostly not so great teams to double, if I'm totally honest, guys. It's not going to be a double game week with the big teams. Arsenal really looking like the biggest team to double in 34. You're not going to get a Liverpool. You're not going to get a Man City more than likely to double in game week 34. It's all going to depend on FA Cup results. And yeah, we don't know about FA Cup results for the following round until game week. Well, after Game Week 26 deadline. So after this deadline, before the Game Week 27 deadline, we're going to have more information about double game week. So yeah, that is still to come. So where does that leave us? Well, if you're building a wildcard team this week, I think a real key is to make sure that you are nicely covered for Game Week 29. That's the first thing we need to look at is Game Week 29. I'm going to assume that you guys hopefully have a free hit as well and a bench boost left to use later on in the season. You're possibly looking at free hit 34, possibly looking at a bench boost 37. Those are the two most obvious places to use those two chips if you are wildcarding now, because if you're wildcarding now, it basically means you don't need to free hit in Game Week 29. And I think that was what would be a big part of a wildcard. I would not look to wildcard now and then free hit in Game Week 29. It seems completely pointless to do that. You may as well not wildcard. You may as well just roll with whatever team you have right now and then free hit anyway in Game Week 29 and wildcard shortly after that. But right now, if you are wildcarding, no free hit in 29. So this is how we're going to do this. So, I've built a team here. We've got Flecken in goal. In defense, we've got Gabriel, Aitnori, and Region. Of course, Flecken plays against West Ham. Not such a bad fixture with West Ham struggling for goals at the moment. Gabriel obviously playing for Arsenal's defence, the best defence in the Premier League at the moment. Aït-Nouri, who is a very attacking wing-back for Wolverhampton Wanderers. He plays Sheffield United this week and Fulham in a couple of game weeks' time. So really nice fixtures for him. Even the Newcastle fixture next game week for Aït-Nouri looks pretty good. We've spoken a little bit about Aït-Nouri in videos today. We posted our 100 experts video earlier on today, so make sure you do check that out after this one. And buy, sell, keep, avoid, we highlighted Aït-Nouri as probably the defender to buy as well. So he is the hype defender of the game week, so have him in your team there. And we've got Reguilon there, West Ham again, but of course, Flecken and Reguilon, as we know, Brentford do have a fixture in game week 29, and it's going to be a fixture, very juicy fixture against Burnley. So really, Brentford have one of the strongest fixtures of all teams in game week 29, so lots to look forward to there. In midfield, we've got Saka. I think he's a pretty crucial player to own in FPL at the moment. Home game against Newcastle and then an away game against Sheffield United. Two really, really good fixtures from an attacking point of view, so you've got to make sure you've got your Saka in there. Bowen is in here. Now, that's going to be controversial. I know a lot of people not feeling Bowen too much at the moment, not, really proving himself as a great pick at the moment, but if you're looking to have players for game week 29, then he's going to be a player you want to have. Brentford at home, Everton away, Burnley at home in the next three. Pretty decent fixtures for him at least. After that, He-Chan, another hype player for this game week, I would say. Sheffield United at home, Newcastle away, Fulham at home. Three really nice fixtures for an attacker. So get yourself a Hwang He-Chan. And Bailey is going to be our final midfielder. You might have seen, if you watched the 100 Experts video earlier, you might have seen a few of our experts going for Bailey. And Bailey seems to be a very popular pick among those who are not free hitting in game week 29. Those trying to build a team ready for game week 29 over the next few game weeks are including Bailey in that team. Of course, if you prefer Douglas Luiz in that position, that's absolutely fine as well. Douglas Luiz works instead of Bailey if you fancy that. Of course, Douglas Luiz has been playing much deeper in a defensive midfield position with Kamara, unfortunately injured, probably for the rest of the season and beyond. Now Douglas Luiz is sitting really, really deep, and really his only way of getting attacking contributions are from those set pieces and penalties, and we don't know how often they're going to happen. We don't know when they're going to happen. You have to get a little bit lucky with Douglas Luiz in order to get those FPL points. But Bailey is, much further up the pitch. His underlying numbers are okay, pretty decent, not too bad for a 5.6 million midfielder if you're looking for open play goal contributions, and I think that's what Bailey delivers or will deliver ahead of Douglas Luiz in this upcoming run of fixtures, which do look pretty good for Aston Villa, truth be told. Up front, Erling Haaland, he's probably going to be a captain this game week, so you've got him covered for now. Even against Manchester United and Liverpool, you still back him. We've got Ollie Watkins, super, super crucial player to own. He is a player, again, with great fixtures now and a fixture against West Ham in game week 29, guaranteed to take place. And we've got Solanke. Man City this game week, not ideal, but after that, Burnley, good, and a double game week against Luton and Sheffield, both at home. Phenomenal, phenomenal double game week. So definitely a player you want to have ready to go in your team if you are wildcarding right now. And even this Man City game, every chance that a player like Solanke can get a goal in this game. We've got no more Man City players. Obviously, Bournemouth away, Man United, Liverpool. These are not great fixtures. I don't think you need to triple up or even double up on Manchester City necessarily if you're on a wild card and you have the freedom to choose whoever you want. We've got no Liverpool. They blank this game week. They play Nottingham Forest in 26, and in 27 they play Man City. 26 they blank, 27 Nottingham Forest, 28 they play against Man City, and 29 very, very super, super likely that they are going to blank again in 29. So it's probably not worth going for Liverpool players in your wildcard team. I mean, I guess you can maybe choose one if Salah looks like he's going to be back ready for game week 27, but we don't really know about that yet, do we, guys? And obviously, we've got a blank this game week. So on the bench, we've got Neto, ready for double game week 28. We've got Pau Torres, ready for 29. A couple of decent fixtures there for Aston Villa, as we already mentioned. Pau Torres probably the most nailed on Aston Villa defender you can go for. Some people might like Alex Moreno, but for me personally, Alex Moreno becomes a bit rotation risk when Dino comes back into the team. And, we're seeing Dino getting some minutes here and there. And I think Alex Moreno may get dropped occasionally. A little bit more expensive. And particularly when game week 29, we really do need to make sure we do have our nailed on players for them, because that's going to be a problem game week that we do want to try and cover to the best of our ability. We've got Doughty. again, another double Game Week 28 player who obviously is great in terms of attacking potential. Defensively, not so great. But we obviously do have a situation with Doughty that he is likely to have a fixture in 29. It's not guaranteed with him, though, so be aware of that. The fixture against Nottingham Forest in 29 is not guaranteed for Luton, but it looks likely to happen. And we've got Son here ready to go for his fixture against Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, and then after that, the game week against Fulham in 29. So it'd be nice to have some Spurs players. So this would be your basic kind of template wildcard for this game week if you were looking to wildcard right now and trying to cover yourself for this. Some people say in the chat that Doughty is injured. Yeah, I did see something about that. I didn't actually watch the game. I was because the Arsenal were playing. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out about that in the very near future. But if Doughty is injured, then maybe you can substitute him out for a different Luton defender. But at the same time, you wouldn't be looking really to play Doughty until game week 28 anyway. If you we'll go through game week by game week now. So game week 27, moving to that, I do have Doughty here playing against Aston Villa, but that could easily be switched out for Powell. Very, very easily play Pau Torres against Luton there instead. So maybe that would work instead. And then your team looks a little bit like this. So a couple of changes. Son comes onto the pitch, obviously, because he is back from his blank. We've got Nori moving to the bench there. And again, this team looks pretty strong for game week 27. So you'd have a nice team for game week 27. You can maybe play Neto instead of Flecken. He plays against Burnley, and that way you're not doubled up on the Brentford defence for 27. It's an away fixture, but still, that would be pretty nice there. And then moving on into game week 28, by this point, you would have 2 free transfers. You'll be looking to play your double game week players. So you play Doughty, you play Solanke, you play Neto, as well as all of your other guys who have pretty decent fixtures, again, for Game Week 28. This should be a really strong team for Game Week 28, actually. But you have 2 free transfers to use. And at this point, you're probably looking, how can we further take advantage of the blank game week? And I think maybe at this point, so maybe either in Game Week 27 or 28, because you are going to have free transfers to use, maybe this game week, maybe 27, if you have the money in the bank, and this team, it only costs 99.8 million. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sitting on team value of around 104.5, and I don't even think that's particularly good. I'm sure a lot of you guys are on more than that. So you're going to have plenty of money to play around with here. So Hee-Chan can go for Richarlison, for example. So maybe do something like that. Hee-Chan for Richarlison, double up on the Spurs, and that way you've added an additional Game Week 29 player. And that's going to be the key thing here, is going through Game Week 27 through to Game Week 29. For Game Week 27, we will know for sure who plays in Game Week 29 and who doesn't, and you can start making transfers to kind of reflect that a little bit. So Richarlison can come in for Game Week 27, but there's a chance, we've spoken about this at length before, but, there's a chance, maybe if Chelsea lose to Leeds in the FA Cup, then suddenly Chelsea have a game. If Manchester United lose to Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup, then suddenly Manchester United versus Sheffield United, that's now going to take place in Game Week 29 as well. Of course, Arsenal will play if Chelsea lose to Leeds in the FA Cup. But if Manchester United lose to Nottingham Forest, I don't think that is completely unbelievable. I mean, it's unlikely. It's less likely than likely. But if that does happen, then suddenly Manchester United players are going to have a game against Sheffield United in Game Week 29, and maybe you want to add Højlund, maybe you want to add Garnacho, maybe you want to add Dalot to your team, and you can start doing things like that. But of course, by Game Week 27, we'll know this, and that is one reason why, in an ideal world, you would save your save your wild card until Game Week 27 or Game Week 28, where you'll have far more information about exactly who's blanking, exactly who is playing in Game Week 29. But for now, we have to just go based on predictions and what we do know, and what we do know is Villa, West Ham, Spurs, Brentford. These are the kind of players we want to be picking from. So, at this point, let's just assume everything goes exactly how we expected it to go. Richarlison comes in for Hee-Chan there. Game Week 28, you can maybe add one more player, maybe make a defender move. So maybe Nori is potentially a player that you could switch out there. Or, the other options really are Højlund or Saka. You're not going to sell Solanke. I don't think you probably don't sell Saka or Højlund in this particular game week. So let's say... maybe you could even roll a transfer into Game Week 29 if you wanted to. So maybe roll one transfer into Game Week 29, and then you can make one more move. So assuming everything goes the way we think, they're out of the starting 11 here. It's just going to be Aitnori and Solanke without fixtures. So if you can afford it, Solanke to Tony in 29, something like that. You might have to do Haaland to Tony in 29 instead. Or obviously, that's not ideal to do that, but it might be something that you have to do. And then, once you've made that transfer, that's 10 players for Game Week 29. And I think that's going to be enough. I think it's going to be enough. Even if you are wildcarding now, I don't know if you want to overcommit to Game Week 29. I don't think you want to sacrifice real strong players in order to, get players that, quite frankly, you don't want to own long term. I mean, we're talking about West Ham players who are not looking good right now. Luton players not looking too good right now. Brentford aren't even looking particularly good other than Tony. Aston Villa aren't looking particularly good other than Ollie Watkins. So it is really difficult, and I think that is one thing that's changed that we do need to speak about in the near future. Is do we have to change strategy? And maybe free hitting in 29 is the answer, because so many of these players that we're talking about are these players we actually want to own? Not sure if they are. So anyway, assuming you did this, you got to 10 players in Game Week 29. It would be Aitnori would be the only player who doesn't have a fixture here. Everyone else would have a fixture. Doughty is the only player who might not have a fixture here. Everyone else is locked in for a fixture in Game Week 29. That brings us to Game Week 30. And what I would like to do is go into Game Week 29. If I'm on a wild card in Game Week 26, what I would want to do is go with 10 men in Game Week 29. I think that's plenty. And then in Game Week 29, Game Week 30, mixing up my game weeks today, going into Game Week 30 with 2 free transfers to start building the team back to normal, because you've used your wild card. You can no longer make big wholesale changes to your team ready for the final run of the season. So I'd look to roll 2 free transfers, and what I would most likely do is sacrifice Son for Salah, and to be able to afford that, it would probably have to be Saka out for Palmer. Now, it would not be an easy decision to make to sell Son ahead of the Luton fixture, but I think Salah is going to be the priority. And I think most of you guys will probably agree with that one, that Salah would be the priority. If you could only have one, it probably is going to be Salah. So therefore, we'll be looking at doing that. So how's this team looking now? Pretty good. Assuming it's affordable, maybe some little changes you guys might need to make in order to make it a little bit more affordable. But we suddenly have a team with key players: Salah, Haaland, Palmer, Richarlison, Watkins is still in there, Tony is still in there. The defence is not great outside of Gabriel, who is obviously a legend of FPL defence at the moment. But it doesn't matter too much in defence. It really doesn't matter too much in defence. No defenders are scoring points consistently, really. Players like Trent and Trippier, they are becoming rarer and not really doing what we expect them to do anymore. So defense doesn't matter so much, but the important thing is that you get your attack in order. And I think you can, using 2 free transfers in Game Week 30 after blank Game Week 29, you can quickly get your attack back in order and looking good again. Because aside from maybe Bowen, who's maybe another player you might look to sacrifice in and around here. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to, you could maybe take a -4 and then go for like a Maddison here or something like that. Or you could just, not go with Son in the first place and go with Maddison instead of Son, potentially, something like that. That way you get to keep him. And I think if that's possible. So, yeah, and this is what the team would look like. Suddenly, you're back to normal. And I think that is a key thing. If you are wildcarding now or soon, I would really, really want to be able to get my team back to something looking a little bit more normal, a little bit healthier by the time we reach Game Week 30, 31, 32, at least in the near future after that. So that is your wildcard strategy. After that, you're probably looking at a free hit in Game Week 34 and a bench boost in 37, which is even more interesting because I want to show you something, guys. We have shown this before. So this is the projected fixtures, guys. This comes from FPL.team and Planet FPL, their predicted fixtures. Of course, we will be making our own one of these next game week. I've been putting off, to be honest. I need to make one of these on my own. We made one a couple of weeks ago. I don't really want to update it for the full season. I mean, these guys have gone crazy and projected the rest of the season. I didn't really want to do that until we find out the FA Cup results. So I'll be doing that around this time next week. We'll be doing our own one of these, which will be up to date. And it'll probably look a little bit different to this by the time we get the FA Cup results and FA Cup fixtures. And we'll be able to form a far more accurate projection for the rest of the season. But this is just the projection right now. So this is the projection right now. So shout out to Planet FPL guys who have put this together. Let's see what we got. So key game weeks, once again, 34 and 37. If you're wildcarding in game week 26, we need to think, how is our wildcard now and the decisions we make after our wildcard, including those game week 29 decisions, how is that going to impact the rest of the season? How is that going to impact the big game weeks 34 and 37? Well, first of all, we can see Arsenal play a double. According to current projections, Arsenal will have a double game week in 34. That's because Arsenal are out of the FA Cup and will have fixtures to catch up on due to their Chelsea game and having to be postponed there. So Arsenal versus Chelsea will be the double game week in 34. They'll play that fixture alongside Wolves. So double game week for Arsenal. Now, what you might have noticed is in that wildcard strategy, when we get to game week 30, I sold Saka. So free hit in game week 34 sorts that out. We can bring Saka back in, ready to go for the double game week in 34. We get to avoid his tough fixture against Manchester City. Fair enough, we don't get the Luton game in 31, but we dodge 32 Brighton, 33 Aston Villa, which aren't great fixtures, and we get to go back in on those Arsenal players for game week 34 double. Now, you might have already also noticed that we included a couple of Spurs players, and I think Spurs players, again, are going to be key to your wildcard decisions right now, and bringing in those Spurs players for 29. If you are not free hitting in 29, bring in Spurs players, because Spurs players, when you come to use your free hit in game week 34, they don't have a fixture. So right now, projected Spurs, no fixture, blank game week for them in game week 34. So when you free hit, you've got all your Spurs players, you free hit them all back out again, ready for back-to-back double game weeks in 36 and 37. So you have your triple Spurs, your double or your triple Spurs, you free hit them out for game week 34, and you have them ready for 36 and 37. You're also going to start building towards having a lot of those other key players, Liverpool players. We spoke about Salah. You're still going to have a couple of Bournemouth players. Maybe you still got Flecken. Maybe you hold on to Solanke potentially there as well. They're going to double in 37. Brighton, you can start adding those players. Chelsea, we added Cole Palmer. Can we add some more Chelsea players ready for their Chelsea's doubles in 36 and 37? And so on and so forth. Wolves as well. Can we add some of those players using our transfers between game week 30 and 37? Wildcarding them out in 34, ready to go for a potential bench boost in game week 37. So that is how I would be looking to play a wild card, whether you're playing it this game week, whether you're playing it in 27, 28. That's what I'd be looking to do. And kind of seeing out the season, something like that. And I think that works. So, you've heard about how the free hit works if you're playing it in game week 34. Let's have a look at what a free hit might look like for game week 26, because some people I've actually had a surprising amount of comments on the videos this week saying, Dan, what would you do if you had a free hit? So let's go through that quickly. I don't think that's going to be too many people. I'm going to build it live with you guys, although I have already got notes on my other screen of what players I would be looking to include on it. So let's go through that. First of all, in goal, for a free hit this game week, I'll be looking to have Martinez as my main goalkeeper and possibly Onana as my bench goalkeeper. So we'll start off with those guys. In defense, we are looking straight away at going for some one Arsenal player. So we mentioned this in the video earlier. It looks at the odds. FPL Salah puts the clean sheet odds out on Twitter. So shout out to FPL Salah. He, again, like I say, puts out the clean sheet odds. In collaboration with Fantasy Football Hub, and he actually rates, according to the bookies, the odds actually suggest that Arsenal have the joint highest chance of a clean sheet this game week, even though they're playing against Newcastle, who score a whole bunch of goals. So definitely, if you're free hitting in game week 26, one Arsenal defender is absolutely fine. Obviously, you want to go for a Wolves defender playing at Sheffield United. Aït-Nouri would be the play. Alex Moreno is probably safe for this game week, so maybe you go for him against Nottingham Forest. And then a couple of bench defenders. Lewis Dunk against Everton. Anderson against Burnley. Let's move on into midfield. So for your midfield, I think we double up on Arsenal attack. Because Newcastle at home is such a good fixture for an attacker at the moment. So let's go Saka and Odegaard. You could maybe do Saka and Martinelli if you prefer to go that way, but the double up on the Arsenal attack has got to be done, I think. Saka and Odegaard, if you fancy taking a punt on Trossard, for example, I definitely see it. You know, a free hit is a perfect opportunity to take a punt on someone like Trossard if it looks like Gabriel Jesus is not going to be starting. Definitely would be considering that, so think about that one. And then a double up on the Wolves attack. So He-Chan and Neto against Sheffield United there. Beautiful stuff. And we're going to stick Garnacho on the bench there as well. Moving up front, 3-man for strike force. Erling Haaland is in every team that ever existed ever. So he's got to be in there. He's so good. I'm allergic to how good he is. Watkins against Forest. How could we forget? And the third forward is probably going to be a contentious one, I would say. Some people say maybe Højlund here. I would be between Højlund and Tony. Tony for Brentford, taking penalties and playing against an out-of-form West Ham team. Don't get me wrong, Højlund's doing well at the moment, but he's not on pens. And I think Fulham are a slightly better team than West Ham are right now. So for that reason, I'm going to go for Tony, but I would not blame you if you went for Højlund. I think both of those players have their merits. So, let's quickly do a little puzzle. Part of the game, right, guys? We correctly identified the motorcycle. Optimize that team. It's actually predicting Garnacho to get more points than Neto, but I'm going to back Neto. And there we have it, guys. That would be our Game Week 26 free hit team. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty nice. Don't know what you think. But if I was to free hit, if I could have any players in Game Week 26, this is what I would do. This is what I would do. So, with that said, we spoke about wildcard. We spoke about free hit for this game week, if you need to do it. Fair enough if you do. Do I recommend either of those things? Do I recommend wildcarding or free hitting? Well, we just spent, what, half an hour speaking about wildcard and free hit drafts, and now I'm about to tell you, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend either of those, because here is the big thing. Here is the crux. Going back to the fixtures, what we can tell immediately from this is that Game Week 29, 34, and 37 are completely incompatible with each other. They don't go together. You know, Spurs blanking in 34, but you want their players for 29, and you want their players for 36 and 37. How are you going to make that work? Free hit or wildcard. This is the time to free hit or wildcard. I think right now there's, like I said earlier, there's 2/3 viable strategies. I think 2. Some people will argue with me and say there's a third one, which we'll also speak about. But right now, the 2 big chip strategies that I see working are the wildcard one first, but don't play it this week. Wait, if you can, one more game week at least before playing that wildcard. If you can wait till 27 or 28 to play the wildcard, sort yourself, cover yourself for Game Week 29, pivot out of some of those players like we kind of discussed in the plan earlier. Wildcard, you know, in and around 27, 28. Ready for Game Week 29. Game Week 34, free hit. Boom. Like I say, remove some Arsenal players, keep those Spurs players. In Game Week 34, you know, we're in a situation where, you know, we can wildcard, we can free hit out Spurs players and free hit in Arsenal players, which works pretty well. I think that's another advantage of actually wildcarding in 27 rather than 26 is you get to go triple Spurs. You can't really do that if you're wildcarding this game week because Spurs, obviously, they don't play in Game Week 26, do they? So it's a little easier to triple up on Spurs next game week. And obviously we'll get more information about other teams that will or will not play. So then you've done that. Then using your transfers between Game Week 30, and it will be 30 because your transfers between now and 29, whether you wildcard soon or not, anything before 29 is going to be about setting up for Game Week 29. From Game Week 30 is where we kind of restart. Some people will be doing that with various other chips, but for this strategy, if you're wildcarding in 26, 27, 28, preferably 27, 28, you'll be looking to free hit in 34, but during the period between 30 and 36, 37, building towards a bench boost. Bench boost 37 looks like the play. When we look at some of these teams, the double, there's potential here. Bournemouth against Brentford and Wolves. We've got Brighton against Newcastle and Chelsea. Might be quite nice for an attacker. Kaldu Mitoma, someone like that. João Pedro if he's available. Chelsea, Cole Palmer is going to be an absolute must for back-to-back double game weeks. You're really going to want that to have those nailed-on Chelsea players for these fixtures. In that game week, you'll also look at Liverpool players playing against Spurs in 36, and then in 37, Aston Villa and Fulham, which is okay. You want those Man City players. They've got a great run of fixture from sort of game week 32 onwards. They've got a great run of fixtures again. Maybe looking to free hit some of your Man City players out in 34. You're probably not going to want to triple up on Man City away to Brighton, but you're probably going to want to have that triple up on City in and around that game week 34. Manchester United, Arsenal and Newcastle, is there potential there? It's okay. Newcastle, it's okay. But maybe we don't love those double game weeks for United and Newcastle, but they're okay. And they certainly have good fixtures in the build-up towards 37. So you could consider them. And like we said, Spurs, amazing 36, 37. And Wolves in 37 look good. So it might be that you have maybe one Wolves player in your team, maybe bring them in for 35 when they play against Luton at home. Then maybe in 36 you bench that player. Game week 37 you play your bench boost. So it's going to look good for the Crystal Palace and Bournemouth home games. Now, of course, as we know, this is not going to be 100% accurate. It really isn't. This is a good indication of roughly what we're going to see, but it's not going to be 100% accurate. So this is only, remember guys, this is only a rough guideline based on current information, and next game we'll have far more information and we'll cover it all. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. It's good to have an idea now. And then we've got the other strategy, which involves free hitting in game week 29. So we've spoken about the first strategy. Wildcard in 27 or 28, free hit in 34, bench boost in 37. That's plan A. Plan B, or call it plan A if you can call plan B A if you want to. It depends what plan you prefer, I suppose. Plan B is free hit 29. And this is the hype one at the moment. This is the hype one at the moment. And I see it. Now, guys, believe me, I hate a Twitter trend, a content creator template more than anyone. I really do. And I say that as a content creator. I find it boring. I will try and avoid doing it if possible. If I see another opportunity to go a slightly different way, I will. But this is valid. This is valid. And this involves free hit 29. Now, the huge benefit of free hitting in game week 29, it means that you don't have to keep players, or you don't have to buy players. You have to wildcard in players. You don't have to buy players that actually you don't like. And we're talking about Aston Villa, West Ham, Spurs, Luton. These four teams in particular are teams that maybe a week or so ago we were looking at and thinking, these teams are looking pretty good right now. I want to have these players anyway. I would want to have these players. So it doesn't really matter. We can go into game week 29. I will happily own these players anyway. I don't want to own them for 1 week only. I want these players in my team. I want an Aston Villa defender. I want to have a couple of Luton Town players. I want to have maybe a Jared Bowen in my team. I want to, have triple Spurs because they were looking brilliant. They really were. Things have changed a little bit now, and those teams that we're talking about who all play in 29 actually maybe not looking so hot at the moment, and I think their stocks have gone down quite significantly actually over the last week or so, and for that reason, maybe they're not players you want to own long term. And if you're wildcarding them in game week 27, 28, you're probably going to have to own at least some of them long term, which could cause some problems. For some of them, at least. Some of them are okay. Some of them you might not mind owning long term, but maybe particularly like a Luton or a West Ham player, you're not going to want to own them long term. So, by free hitting in game week 29, you deal with that problem. You don't have to worry about that. So, game week 29, you free hit everyone out. And you bring in a bunch of players who you don't want to hold on long term. Get a full team of 11 players. You get to go triple Brentford. You get to go double or triple Spurs, probably triple Spurs, probably go double or triple Aston Villa. You maybe throw in one West Ham player in there, maybe one Luton Town player, and whoever else happens to play in that game week, one or two of players from those teams as well, which is absolutely fine. Probably get if you free hit in 29, a way above average score in Game Week 29, because people are not going to score very high in Game Week 29, even if you free hit. You're probably not going to score that much more than the average, because it's just going to be a low scoring game week. It really is. But you'll get something. You'll get something. But more importantly, and I think this is the key here, is even though you might not massively gain in Game Week 29, it allows you to do other things. It allows you to avoid certain players in your team long term. So the free hit in this scenario will be more about what you're doing around Game Week 29 rather than what you're doing within Game Week 29. It gives you the freedom to do whatever you want without having to worry about Game Week 29. And I know that appeals to a lot of you guys out there. I know it appeals to you. So with that said, after that, you're looking to go ham on those Arsenal players ready for Game Week 34, because you're not going to have a free hit for Game Week 34. You want to triple up on Arsenal ready for Game Week 34. Big time triple up on Arsenal. You can maybe throw in a Crystal Palace, Everton, Sheffield United player if you wanted to, if they double. But, I mean, if we're totally honest, and one downfall of the free hit in 34 might actually be that people are tempted to go for Crystal Palace, Everton, and Sheffield United players who aren't actually that good. They're not actually going to score too highly in Game Week 34. And actually, a lot of the single Game Week players might outscore some of the double Game Week players in 34, looking at some of these teams with doubles based on current projections. Other than Arsenal. Arsenal look good. So, the free hit wouldn't actually be such a bad thing, having spent that earlier. It actually might mean that you dodge some Game Week 34 traps. But more importantly, I think you can go in a little bit. You can go triple Arsenal. You can go in on a little bit of some of those other teams, maybe. Because if you are free hitting in 29, you would be looking to wildcard in 34. Now, the one downside to this strategy is probably using that wildcard so late. Because if you're already in a little bit of trouble right now, you might actually be thinking, my team is in trouble. I just want to use my wildcard. I want to solve this situation. I just want to resolve this situation. I want to use my wildcard. I've got too many problems. Don't want to have to deal with this. Let me just fix my team. If you're doing this strategy, the Game Week 29 free hit, you're basically forced to wildcard in 35. You really are, because you're going to want to go on triple Spurs. And if you are not free hitting in 34, based on what we have right now, you can't really have Spurs players. So 35, you want to go triple Spurs, triple Chelsea on your wildcard in 35. So you've got players ready for back-to-back doubles in 36, 37. And hopefully building towards a really nice bench boost in 37. So that is the strategy number 2 that I think works really well at the moment. I think that's really, really increased in appeal, really, over the last week or so. So that is strategy 2. So strategy 1, remember guys, was wildcard in 27 or 28, free hit in 34 and bench boost 37. Option number 2 is free hit in 29. Wildcard in 35 and bench boost in 37. Write these ones down, guys. Write this down. Which leaves us with one final strategy. I don't like it, but people keep telling me it's a great one. So let's go with it. Let's talk about it. So the final strategy is to not use chips to deal with 29. I don't know how on earth people plan on dealing with Game Week 29 without the use of some chips. But some people think dead end to 29 and wildcard in 30. How are you going to do that? I have no idea. Because doing that basically means that, well, it really means that you're probably going to struggle to get more than one player against for Bournemouth in Game Week 20 in 28. Probably want to have double Bournemouth in 28 because that double Game Week is so good. Probably not going to be able to do that using the Game Week 30 wildcard or 30-31 wildcard strategy. You're probably going to have to really make some big sacrifices over the next 3 game weeks. And I think that is the thing that really puts me off a Game Week 30-31 wildcard and dead ending into it. Is you basically have to make all your transfers between now and 29 solely focused on 29. You're going to have to remove all of your best players and you have to replace them all with players who play in Game Week 29. There's not going to be as much flexibility to do that as you would have in a wild card, because you can have full control over the situation. You won't have full control. You basically have to be taking hits, making transfers you don't necessarily want to make. Between right now, you might have to sacrifice. You might have to, go without Wolves players this game week, for example, because you're building towards that Game Week 29 team. So you don't go for Wolves players. You won't be going for too many Bournemouth players, because they're another team that's probably going to blank in 29. But for some people, it's going to work. If you're already halfway there, if you've already got, Watkins, Pau Torres, a Luton player or two, maybe you've got double Spurs, maybe you've got Pedro Porro and Richarlison in your team already. Maybe you've got Son in your team already as well. Maybe you've got Martinez as your goalkeeper. Maybe you've got Kaminsky. Maybe you've got Flecken. Maybe you've got Tony. If you already have some of the players who do have a fixture in Game Week 29, then I see how that would work for some people. But for the vast majority of people, it just doesn't work. It sadly doesn't work. And there will be people out there, and there has been people out there who say, Dan, this does work. This does work. Yes, it works because half your team plays in Game Week 29 already. Most of us, for me, for example, I think I only have I have one Spurs player, and it's Pedro Porro. I haven't even bought Ollie Watkins for this game week yet, but we'll have him, I guess. It'll just be Pedro Porro if he's fit. Well, he will be, but if he's fit. And Ollie Watkins. And then who else will I even have that plays in Game Week 29 based on my current team? I guess let's have a quick look. Game week. I do need to refresh this page because it's a bit buggy. But yeah, Charlie Taylor, Pedro Porro. For me, they're the only two players I have right now who play in Game Week 29. So it's just not going to work for me. It's not going to work. For some people, it might. But it's also going to depend a lot on kind of also hoping for cup upsets. If Chelsea lose to Leeds, I think that changes everything. I think that does change everything. It really, really does. Because that means Arsenal and Chelsea will go into Game Week 29. But how likely is that? I don't know. We're talking about teams from literally in different leagues. So maybe it works. The problem is you have to commit to it now. And I think this is the key. If you plan on going into Game Week 29 and you are committing to playing 0 chips before Game Week 29, well, even before 30, really, then your transfer this week has to be in preparation for 29. Your transfer next game week has to be in for preparation for 29. Your transfers the week after has to be in preparation for Game Week 29. You've got to try and get Solanke in whilst you're doing all this as well. So if you are planning to use strategy 3C, I don't know, what do you prefer? Numbers or letters? Doesn't matter. If you're planning to use that third strategy we spoke about, where you actually don't wildcard until 30 or 31, then it's going to be tough. You're going to need some upsets. Probably not going to take a full advantage of Bournemouth in 28. Or Luton. Not that that matters as much, I guess. But for some people, it's going to be possible. For some people. But I don't really see the advantage of doing that, to be honest. But more importantly, if you are going to do all that this week, your transfer needs to be in preparation for that. As simple as that. If you are going to go into game week, well, all the way until game week 30 before using any of your chips, excluding the triple captain, of course, then this game week you need to make a transfer in preparation for 29. No Hwang Hee-chan for you. No White Nori for you. Maybe you don't mind that so much. No Hoyland for you. Maybe that rattles a few more feathers. But yeah, look, it's going to work for some people, like I said. So yeah, I really do like the first two strategies I spoke about. I really, really do. I think they both work and they both have their advantages and disadvantages. I think if you free hit in 29, you could set yourself up for a really, really nice end to the season. If you wildcard in 27 or 28, I think you can take a lot of advantages of the short term in particular. But also using that free hit in 34, you're going to, again, have advantages there. But do you struggle slightly more than the average manager in 36, 37? Potentially. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. Again, I didn't want to make a whole video about this. I thought we'll just do an off-the-cuff stream where I could just vomit out all of my thoughts around chips and stuff like that. I mean, they are proper thoughts. I have thought about this in great detail. But, yeah, no real structural graphics because I really, really did want to save the big video for next week because we need to find out those FA Cup results because they change everything. One upset in the FA Cup could change everything. It really, really could. I don't know how likely it is. I mean, guys, let's have a look through the FA Cup fixtures. It's interesting. So, Coventry Maidstone doesn't have too much of an implication on FPL, as we well know. But, you know, if Blackburn beat Newcastle, if Leeds beat Chelsea, I don't know if that's going to impact. You know, these ones would impact it a lot. But, you know, Wolves versus Brighton would be less impactful because, you know, you need other things to go away. I mean, I actually made a graphic for the video a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, that said all of the things that needed to happen. So we won't go through it too much. But, yeah, just looking through these fixtures, where is the upset going to be? Leicester versus Bournemouth. I don't know. Bournemouth are playing well at the moment. City beat Luton, don't they? Let's be honest. Liverpool beat Southampton. The two upsets you maybe see, or maybe, yeah, it's only two really, because I think Newcastle beat Blackburn. I think it just comes down to maybe Leeds pulling off a freak result against Chelsea. I mean, Leeds a good team in the Championship. And Nottingham Forest are obviously a Premier League team. So, of course, they are going to be competitive with another Premier League team like Manchester United. Maybe that's disrespectful to Blackburn, but when I look through these fixtures, those are the two most likely upsets. Forest beat Man United, and actually we don't gain a fixture for game week 29 anyway. It just means that Luton versus Forest won't take place in 29. Another big thing, if you're wildcarding this game week and you're bringing in Luton players, they might not even play in 29 if Forest beat Manchester United. And that, you know, it'll change so much. And actually, to be fair, might actually make the wildcard strategy actually more appealing in many ways. Wildcarding in 20, you know, if Manchester United lose to Forest, wildcard 27 or 28 looks pretty good. Because then you could go for like a Højlund, you could go for a Garnacho, you can go for a Dalot. And you've got some really nice options for game week 29. I'll give it makes the free hit more appealing as well, though. But I think Manchester United players right now are players you would be more comfortable with holding long term. Particularly your Garnachos and your Højlunds. If Chelsea lose to Leeds, then obviously we have Arsenal versus Chelsea who would go into game week 29. I think that would help a lot of people planning on going into 29 without chips. I think that would pretty much mud free hit game week 29. I think if Leeds beat Chelsea and Chelsea and Arsenal play in 29, free hit in 29 pretty much becomes pointless. Particularly if you've got Cole Palmer and at least double Arsenal, maybe even triple Arsenal anyway. Just not going to need it. Just not going to need that free hit chip for the 29. So, all will be revealed in a week's time, guys. FA Cup 5th round kicks off on Monday. This Monday coming. And by the end of Wednesday, this time, pretty much exactly this time, in 1 week's time, we will know which fixtures will take place in 29 and which ones won't. And we'll have a good idea of how the rest of the season looks as well for doubles and blank game weeks, which is crazy. So I think we will leave chip strategy talk from my end there. We'll do a quick Q&A and then we will disappear off to the land of Nod to bed. So yeah, guys, hit me with some final questions before we disappear. And whilst I'm waiting for you guys to pop a couple of questions into the chat, just a quick reminder, if you wouldn't mind liking, the video, that would be really, really appreciated. Liking the stream, liking the video, it really does massively, massively help out the channel. I'm going to keep plugging, I'm going to keep doing the subscribe plug as well, because what are we now? We are we're actually very close to 296,000 subscribers, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, we are 43 subscribers off 196k. And that would be down to the final 4k before the big 200,000. Man, it would be good to hit that. I think we probably hit 200,000. We probably don't do it in this season, but yeah, certainly by the time we're dropping Euro content, we'll be at 200,000 subscribers, no doubt about it. Brucey, I know you're very keen to have this question answered. I get this question a lot, to be fair. I'm pretty sick of answering it, to be honest, but I will anyway. So why do you call Haaland Haaland? Love your content. You're the best, bro. Glad you asked. I'm not. It's basically, I try and use the pronunciation a little bit closer to the Norwegian pronunciation. I do try and make an effort where possible to try and use, national pronunciations of names, because this is not, just in English. I know a lot of you guys will be English, Scottish, Irish, maybe American, Australian, English as your first language, or maybe you speak with an English accent, or I don't know, whatever that means. But yeah, this is a very much an international YouTube channel. 70% of people watching this are not from the UK. So we do try and be conscious about that. So I'll try and say Haaland rather than Haaland, which is very much the English way of saying the name. And, similar players like Ødegaard, I'll say Ødegaard rather than Odegaard. But nobody says, oh, damn, why don't you say Ødegaard? Why don't you say Odegaard? It's just his name. We had this whole conversation about Kaoru Mitoma. Japanese name, Japanese pronunciation. So we can go on and on and on. One thing I do draw the line at is Bruno Fernandes. Doesn't feel right. It just doesn't work in my accent, my voice. Can't do it. I do say occasionally, but yeah, difficult. But anyway, that answers that question, hopefully. And yeah, I look forward to seeing a whole bunch of other comments about how I'm wrong, how you shouldn't pronounce it that way. But yeah, it's just, yeah. When I first started saying Haaland, those, just like there's a lot of English people now saying, why are you saying it that way? Back then, there was a lot of, Norwegian, Danish, Swedish people telling me, Dan, you're saying it wrong. So no, we can't please everyone. So we just try and keep things regional in terms of individual names, where the player is from. Anyway. Right, let's have a look at some of these other questions. Brendan Johnson fan says, how difficult to navigate the rest of the season without chips? I have no chips. Yeah, it's super, super difficult. Super difficult. Because as I've kind of looked at, game week 29, 34, and 37 are incompatible. You're going to want to have completely different teams for each of those game weeks. And that's not really possible to switch quickly between teams without the use of those chips. So it is going to be tough. It is going to be tough. And you may need to take some hits. Kabalesh says, what happens if you only have a wild card and a free hit left? Fine, just don't bench boost in 37. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. You go with the exact same normal strategy, but you just don't bench boost in 37, which is fine. Wayne says, would you take a -4 to bring Solanke in this week or just play with 10 men? I would take the -4 because it's really only going to be a -2. And then, you kind of count up what are the chances of Solanke getting something in that game. Means you have an extra transfer, I guess, next week, don't you? In a way, a transfer you're going to make anyway. And yeah, you're looking at -2 as a worst case scenario because the 2 points you get from him playing are difficult. Try Kivior. I mean, I know that the W's are pronounced like V's, so we try and if it's like a Polish name, for example, we'll pronounce a W like a V. Like an English person would say Kiwior, but it's more Kivior. So we try. Hechan or Saka? I would prioritize Saka over Hechan. Triple Captain Solanke, 28. Your thoughts? It is up there with one of the best opportunities for the rest of the season. The other opportunities I like is Cole Palmer in 37. That's another big one I like. Not in 37, in 36. Cole Palmer in 36. He is going to potentially be playing there against West Ham and Spurs, both at home. I think Solanke in 28 or Palmer in 36. Could maybe do Heung-min Son in 36 as well. That's a possibility. There's some other. I know everyone's saying no. Triple captain Solanke 28, Solanke 28, Solanke 28. It is a option, but it is not the only option. Not the only option. Gabriel says, are you set on using your wildcard in 27-28? I'm not set on it, no. But yeah, I'll be doing one of the strategies, one of the first two strategies we spoke about earlier in this video. One of them would be me wildcarding more than likely in 28 rather than 27. But yeah, both are possible. Jojo says we have a mutual friend in Mikey Ferguson. Yeah, shout out Mikey, absolute legend. What else have we got here? Kivior has a hard R at the end. Otherwise, good pronunciation. Hard R. I don't even know how to say a hard R. You know, I think the English accent does struggle with its R sometimes. Kablash says, do you think Saka is a good differential captain? Yes, I do. I do think he is probably the best differential captain. If you're not going to captain Haaland this week, I would definitely consider going with a Saka or maybe Ollie Watkins potentially there as well. So there is options. Joel says free hit and bench boost left. What next? I think ideally, it depends what your team looks like. If you wildcarded recently, I'm hoping you are semi set up for Game Week 29 anyway. In which case, you roll through Game Week 29 without any chips and you free hit 34 and bench boost 37. Nigel says, I'm free hitting but struggling with too much choice. What, right now? There's a lot of choice. There is a lot of choice this week, to be fair. But yeah, Arsenal and Wolves are going to be the hype teams, aren't they? Miltos says, thoughts on Elanga? Don't think I'd be going there personally. Not really seeing the upside there. I think there's just too many other options. Nigel says, Højlund is my captain this week. Fulham are shocking. Definitely an optional differential captain there. Linus says, He-Chan captain this week. Risky. He is an all-or-nothing kind of player, but he definitely has a hole in him. Poker says, Douglas Luiz or Bailey. And I don't know. It depends what you want. I think Douglas Luiz is probably a safer pick, but stick with him. In terms of Powell or Moreno, I think I would go for Powell because I wouldn't want to spend too much money on Aston Villa defenders, and I would want the nailedness of Pau Torres. Beardy says, thoughts on keeping Trippier or selling get Senesi. I wouldn't sell Trippier for Senesi this week. I would rather have Trippier than Senesi this week, unless you need to free up some budget. But yeah, Trippier to Senesi looks like a definite possibility in the near future. Walker, dual rests. I mean, maybe you never know with Pep Guardiola. LB says, I wildcarded and have 9 players who will play in Game Week 29. Perfect. All right, navigate. Yeah, you're basically using strategy number 1 that we spoke about earlier, but just with a slightly earlier wildcard. So it works. It works. As long as there's no surprises in the FA Cup. And Samanu says, should I take a -4 for a Solanke, a Stupinian, and Lamptey playing? He can replace. And Solanke is a decent player to bring in this week. You're going to want to have him at some point in the near future. Anyway, I don't think you have to bring Solanke in this week, but you're going to want to have him in place by Game Week 28. Up the absolute latest. Scott says, tread to Powell, -4 to bench 1 of 2 Arsenal defence. Nope. I would play double Arsenal defence this week. They've got the best clean sheet odds for this game week, despite playing Newcastle. How did your game week go? Not great, but that's a conversation for tomorrow's video rather than today's. Any other final question, guys, before we wrap things up today? Best defender to replace Cher. I mean, yeah, it's difficult. It depends what strategy you're going for. Pau Torres, if you don't want to free hit in 29. So if you don't want to free hit in 29, Pau Torres. If you do want to free hit in 29, probably Ait Nori. Or you could go in 1 week early on Senesi if you don't mind potentially getting a 1-pointer from him. But yeah, you probably don't want that. Probably not worth transferring in if that's all you're going to get. But yeah, Ait Nori probably is the defender to get if you feel like you're going to wildcard soon or free hit in 29. Then Ait Nori would definitely be the defender I'd go for. Ait Nori for a Stupinian. It's luxury. It really is luxury because Stupinian has a fixture and he is due a start. If that makes sense. Is Watkins a must-have? Yes, he is. He absolutely is a must-have. What's your transfers for this week? We'll talk about that again tomorrow. Quick look at any potential price changes that are coming up. Let's price changes. on Fantasy Football Hub as well, of course. So it looks like Saka, Gross, Reguilon, Martinez, Robinson, Haaland, Kelleher are all going to go up in price tonight. So be aware, guys. If you're buying Saka, he's going up in price tonight. Haaland, another price increase. Absolutely crazy. Kelleher, price increase. Hey, we take that. A little bit of Wonga for me. Players going down tonight. Diogo Jota, Emerson, and Szoboszlai. So there we go. Various other players going down or up tomorrow as well. You can check this out if you want on Fantasy Football Hub price change predictions tool. So guys, there we have it. Let's wrap things up now, because it's pretty late in the great kingdom of United. But guys, appreciated you joining me for tonight's stream. Good to just, it was good to get all of my chip strategy thoughts out there a little bit, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I just wanted to talk about it, just have a general discussion about it, as well as some maybe, chips you might be using this week. But the big week's next week for chip strategy. It really is. Next week is going to be huge. Absolutely huge. So, so much information to come. We'll be covering it all next game week, so stay tuned for that. Aside from that, guys, please do go check out some of the other videos I uploaded this week. We've already got, I think, 3 Gameweek26 videos up on the channel already. We're going ham, as usual. We'll be doing team selection tomorrow, and then on Friday, we will do a nice little final decisions. We'll be covering all of the press conferences and any other key news and final decisions you guys need to make. We'll be covering that all on Friday. And then Saturday, slightly later deadline, guys, if you haven't noticed, 1:30 p.m. UK time, because there's no early kickoff on Saturday. No early fixture, which is kind of nice in a way, because those early fixtures, they can be troublesome. We know Gandhi likes to play us there. But yeah, guys, we'll leave it there. Please do drop a like before you disappear. Would massively appreciate that. Do subscribe if you haven't done already. And I will see you on tomorrow's video. And I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.